Good morning. Appreciate everyone being here today, not just for day to day, but for our presentation. My name is Scott Maitland. This is John Stark. We're going to do the presentation here today. And our topic is how you can help shape AI here at the state of Indiana. We'll do introductions in just a second. I want to talk about the agenda real quick, which is John and his team do a lot of data governance here at the state of Indiana. And they're going to talk about how it is that you can interact with data governance, how it is that you can get involved with shaping data governance throughout the state of Indiana. We'll then talk a little bit about the efforts that I'm going through about road mapping AI applications throughout the state of Indiana and the enterprise efforts that MPH is working on. And then we'll come back talking about some of the ongoing user groups that you might be able to join, some of the ongoing touch points that we can have with you if you're interested in helping shape this future that we have. And so with that, I'll bounce back to introductions to let John introduce himself. Again, my name is Scott Maitland. I'm the Director of Enterprise Solutions for the state of Indiana for MPH, and I'm doing a lot of work with AI planning for MPH. So, John.
Thanks, Scott. As Scott mentioned, John Stark, Director of Data Governance for MPH. My team, we cover a lot. We cover data governance, privacy, and AI governance for MPH, but also for the enterprise. Can you hear okay in the back? No? Yes? I had this issue earlier. Maybe I'm a little too quiet, which some people would never say that about me. So, but thrilled everyone is here. Appreciate it. We kind of pulled a bait and switch because it is a data governance track, and I promise there's some in it, but it is definitely AI centric. Oh, did I go there? Nope, there we go. So when we were putting this slide deck together, I recently read John Green's book, Everything's Tuberculosis, and it really kind of resonated with me for AI, where AI is everywhere, whether you realize it or not, whether it's generative AI, which is the new bingo word of the day, or whether it's machine learning, which has been around since the 60s. AI is baked into everything, and it is in your face. It's becoming more and more routine, just as email, spreadsheets, the internet, like these are technologies that are so prevalent that most people don't really consider them technologies. They're just business as usual. So AI is everywhere. It's in our face. And whether we like it or not, it's here. But I want to take a step away from the hype. There's a lot of marketing. There's a lot of stock price boosting around it, that it's going to replace us all. It's going to have AGI tomorrow, which we've been hearing for the last couple of years. I feel like we're not, at least not yet, the sci-fi dystopian future. It's just a tool, and I think we need to approach it that way and use it from that perspective. So my team, we do a lot of AI governance, like I mentioned. We do a lot of risk assessments and analysis. But to Scott's point about this is, in this whole presentation, is we can't do this alone. We need active participants at the agency level throughout the state. And that's where you all come in. So we have a number of guardrails in place. We've worked tirelessly with IoT on the security side, but also on the privacy side, on our side of the business, and really have put a lot of work into this, but we need your involvement. So we kind of cover and approach this from a handful of different perspectives, and I'll kind of touch on them here. So it was funny when we were originally putting this together, I was like, the portion of my presentation, of this presentation, I've given in 45 minutes and still ran out of time. So trying to condense everything down to a handful of slides was challenging, but I think we capture it pretty well with this bucketed approach of human-centric technology enablement. So having that human in the loop. So using AI confidently seems pretty common sense, but a lot of people are afraid, and that's okay. But if you're curious and you keep learning and have that confidence, you'll be in the control of that tool. It's not running rogue. It's not running wild. It's not this analogous thing that's just kind of doing its own thing. Not yet. Um, but we're still in the loop, and humans are still a very critical part of that. We also lean heavily into the trust but verify approach. Um, you can, gosh, you can streamline so many different things with this technology. I don't need to spend time drafting, the format of a project plan or a template or things like that, or creating something from scratch. I don't know about all of you, but typically when I open up Word and I look at that blank page, I'm just, oh, what am I going to start with? Where am I going to go? I have an idea of what I want to say, but AI really here is that multiplier where we can have it create that starting point. But at that point, that's when you need to trust but verify. You go in, you add in your personalizations, you create the content, you take what's there and then kind of help build on that ideation. So ultimately, at the end of the day, though, your judgment and your involvement in this tool is what's the most important. And it segues nicely into, my last point on this slide is we have to keep learning. I'm sure I wasn't the person that said it first, but in conversations I've been having with other people around AI, data governance, privacy, people are concerned about being replaced. People aren't going to be replaced. People who don't use the tools, who don't use AI, will probably replace the people who don't. Like with any normal technology advancement, the person who didn't use Excel, you're going to get replaced by someone who does use Excel. So it's that continuous level of learning. And that also creates, everyone's already got full-time jobs. No one wants to learn additional technology on top or things like that. But having that ever learning mindset is really not anything new to technology. I mean, all of you have specialties in your learning constantly over time. So I think applying that to this tool is important, and just keep evolving and building that skill set. Our AI governance process, this is the tricky part that I boiled into a couple slides that normally takes quite a bit longer. We kind of focus on a handful of different approaches. So the first being AI impacts real people. The things that we do here at the state matter. The things that we do here impact people's lives. Whether it's someone processing something in the back end of a process that you don't even have a window, you don't see the light of day, and you just feel like you're moving paper around. I've been there. What you're doing matters and impacts people's lives, and it's our job to protect Hoosiers' rights and privacy and safety. And that's the approach that we take when we're assessing the AI tools that come through our assessment process. We want to make sure that we are applying the same level of scrutiny that we would want for ourselves. Do we want our information unsafe, unsecure, ungoverned? Governance being a huge part of that on the data side. So we approach it with that, and then we embed trustworthiness into every step of the life cycle. So we really want to look at things that are, focused on valid data in, but also valid data out. You don't want a tool that's going to be wildly all over the place. Reliability is great. I think that's part of the reason why some of these tools, with a lot of the way the contracts are set up or the way the environments are set up, most of the time we're set off to the side in a government-specific cloud with a government-specific tool set, which can be confusing at times because it leads to different versions being out there, and you see different things in different places. But what that gives us is the ability for private sector to kind of figure things out and break things a little bit, whereas we can't afford to do that. We have to have things that are valid, reliable, secure, and privacy enhanced, and explainable and fair. It's a core tenet. All of those things are core tenets of what we do in state government as a whole. I would honestly even argue, in the private sector. you can always, close your business and open another one if you ruin your reputation by not using an AI tool the right way. But it's probably not going to be the cheapest approach to your risk mitigation. So applying these principles are important. And the last kind of point on this slide, I'll reiterate, transparency matters. So we're working on public facing, where applicable, inventories and clear governance rules to keep things accountable, but also clear. We want people to know that we're using AI. It's not a bad thing. I think there's a stigma around using AI, and I'll even go back on the first slide. Right there, we noted that we used some AI content in this. Is it the whole presentation? No. Did I use it for some ideation and working out what I wanted to say and the phrasing of it? Of course. But that's not anything bad. But having that transparency about where that line is so that people can know and understand what you're using it for, and when you're using it, especially in our context, back to the earlier point, we have impacts on people's lives. It's important what we do. So having that transparency is quite critical. Before I get into the standardization, I kind of skipped over a point that I want to touch on a little bit more, and that's kind of where all of you fit into this. We have spent, my team and Scott's team and IoT have spent a considerable amount of time vetting tools, looking at risks, reading endless amounts of research, papers, articles, journals, and it's all helpful for us, but we can't sit in our office on the 8th floor and say, all right, everyone, this is exactly how we see it, and apply it from there. We need agency level thoughts. We need agency level awareness. I'm always, when I'm wearing my data governance hat, I'm always advocating for people in the agency side that your data better than we do. 100%, because you're in you're in the weeds of it with your sleeves rolled up all the time, doing those tasks, doing those processes. So having that lens of you have skin in the game, like it's just as important to me that we get it right on our end at MPH as it is that you get it right on your end at your agency level, because ultimately you're going to know your risks, you're going to know your data, and you're going to know where it's going to really highlight where your processes can really be that force multiplier. So important point there that I kind of skipped over. But the last slide, I think here, before we turn it over to Scott, just kind of quickly goes over our process, because transparency is important throughout the whole process. So we have an assessment that every AI use case typically goes through. It's based on the NIST AI risk management framework. NIST is basically a technology. Actually, I think they regulate more than technology too. Yeah, it's Chamber of Commerce. I think Ted always used to say they regulate peanut butter as well. That always stood out to me. But they have set up a great standard. And so our assessment process is rooted in the NIST AI risk management framework. Now we've added some additional lenses that we think are important for us here for our scenarios. And we review these submissions and define those use cases, which you'll hear a lot as you're here, use cases on a risk basis. So it'll be a low, moderate, or high risk bucket. And each one of those are going to have different controls identified to mitigate risks. That whole standardized process, though, is really important that we're applying the same standard across the board to all of the tools, because a lot of the technology is very similar, if not the same. They're different models, but they do similar capacity or similar functions. So we take a standardized approach. One of the things that we've, which will probably surprise no one, really noticed is, and have been advocating, it all starts with data. So you're going to have a very poor AI implementation if your data is ungoverned, if your data is unstructured, if you don't which is, it's not a secret. A lot of people don't even know where all of their data is. That's okay. We're all kind of in this boat. It's a safe space here. I've not met everyone here, but it's a safe space. You have to start somewhere. And so recognizing that it all starts with the data is your tipping point. This is how you actually take these tools and kick them off into escalate, or excuse me, not escalating, to use it, AI as a force multiplier. But back to the point I made earlier, we can't do this without you. We have to know that you are doing the data governance at the agency level, that you're structuring your data the right way, that you're following standards for interoperability, that when IDEM has something that would benefit DNR, you guys share the data and we facilitate that. Hopefully you could reach out and work on that together, but having those standards and that uniformity is important. So similar to that, like I just said, quality, lineage, and privacy are truly the foundations of AI from our perspective. But all of that is quite a kind of quick snapshot of our process. Like I said, I've done this presentation where it takes 45 minutes and it still wasn't enough to kind of go through our process. But it's really, we're really kind of coming to a head here. And I think Pete, our CDO, says it really well, where we're at the end of the beginning. I have to make sure I don't lean into my dyslexia. We're at the end of the beginning, and we're starting to make sure, and Scott will talk about here a little bit, that we're planning ahead. So interoperability, procurement, making sure that we are not building one-off systems and one-off tools, but so that we're looking at use cases that help many agencies instead of custom development or custom tool deployments that end up being kind of tech debt more than anything, and only benefit one agency. We're really looking for that interoperability and planning ahead. And turn over to Scott for the rest.
Thanks, John. What I think is great is that John touched on a little bit, is that the approach that MPH has is really one of value, right? And there's two sides of a value sort of ratio, which is what is the cost of something, and then what is the add-on of something. And so John's team is really focused on making sure that that cost is as low as possible, reducing the risk as much as possible. And then on the other side of it, we have to make sure that the things that we are allowing and that we are adding risk to our enterprise add value to our enterprise also, that they help us do the work better, faster, cheaper, et cetera. And so one of the things that I have personally been tasked with is doing AI road mapping efforts. And so what you'll see on the screen here is this idea of creating solutions for all agencies so that you don't have to build your own boats, that you can sort of ride the boats that everyone is building in. And so I know we have vendors here today, but how many people here are state of Indiana agency folks? Okay, so great, the vast majority. That's fantastic. And this is nothing to say, I mean, we're going to talk a lot about, I'm going to sort of always talk about building or having things, but we're going to have to work with our vendors, right? But we know we get the best price when we work together, not as 80 individual agencies, but as one state of Indiana, and even with our partners at the local level or the federal level, using GSA or creating QPAs that local governments can use with us. A great example of that is our Copilot rollout we've already done. How many of you have just the regular Copilot chat? You use it throughout your day. Great. And anybody here use the elevated Copilot, the M365? Great, fantastic. And so what are we looking to do? We're trying to reach out to agencies, and we're touching base with agency heads and chiefs of staff to start to understand their processes, understand the challenges that you all face. And what we're going to do is we're going to try and abstract them out and find that common solution that we can put into a centralized spot so as many people as possible can look at that. And so what we say here is, what are we looking to do? We're trying to find the challenges in your day-to-day work, the things that you are that are consistent with other agencies and that are unique to your agency, right? There are things that we want to help you solve and we want to know about that are unique to your agency, but we also in these conversations want to find the things that are consistent with your agency. And maybe you don't don't even know it. It's not fair to expect every agency to understand what 80 other agencies are doing. Your job is to deliver some sort of oversight, to help children in need, to help an underserved population. It's our job at MPH to be that horizontal service provider, and that's what we're trying to do here. And so, is that not the same slide? Might be the same slide. It is different. You're right. Okay, so what we're trying to learn in the meetings is consistent challenges across agency lines, what existing tools you have. Maybe you've built software, you are already integrated with a particular vendor already. How do we make sure that we're taking, John used the right word, interoperability. How do we make sure we don't ask you, hey, if you want to use this, you have to get rid of that vendor you've been using for 10 years. That doesn't make sense. How do we work with that vendor? How do we make sure that our big partners that we've been talking about all day here, Salesforce, Google, Amazon, et cetera, I don't mean to leave anybody out, I apologize, but how do we make sure that they are good partners for us and they exist with maybe some of those smaller vendors that you already work on? And then the thing that MPH does day in and day out, even before AI showed up, was data. How do we make sure your data is where it needs to be? How do we connect you to data sources you didn't know existed in other agencies and help improve that process all over, so that even when you have the right tool in place, we're putting the right things into that tool to get the best possible output? And so let me give you a couple of quick examples, because we're talking in abstracts, but let me give you some. Knowledge management is a perfect one. Subject matter expertise, making sure it doesn't walk out the door when somebody goes out to the private sector, they go to another agency, or they retire, right? We all have that person in our office who has been there for 25 years, and everyone is scared to death of the day that they come in and they say, you know what, I hit my rule of 85 and I am gone. I will see you suckers never, right? And so, but we don't want that person's knowledge to go out the door. So how do we start to capture that? How do we build that RAG solution so I can put Bob in a box and I can always ask Bob forever and always what it is that he did whenever this situation came up, right? But there's no reason that you all should have to solve that solution. We should have one. We should have one, and so that everybody can talk with the same state employee handbook, and that everybody can look at the same set of Indiana code, and that your agency as a whole can have its own repository and your team can have its own repository. How do we build that corpus of knowledge that builds on our existing infrastructure, and we don't have 55 different copies of the same thing that we're paying for storage on? Another example is code development and modernization. There's just an example. I know there are a lot of agencies who have custom solutions they've either built themselves or that they've had other organizations build for them. Look, I started my career as a developer. The one thing developers hate to write is documentation. I get it, right? And so not a single one of our systems is probably documented as well as we would like it to be, which means when it's broken, it takes longer to fix than it should, right? And so how do we get even just modernization or testing, or it doesn't even have to be this vibe coding concept that we've talked about, but how do we utilize, I mean, this is where all of the tech companies started because they got the most value out of it. So these are some of the most mature tools in AI right now. What are the right things to put in the hands of state government to make sure we're not creating technical debt, but we're resolving it? Another example is intelligent case or workflow management. Whether you're working on actual casework in some sort of legal sense, or maybe you're like a FSSA type role where you have cases that you're working on, or you're just an attorney who has documents that have a step 1, step 2, step 3 type workflow, how do we turn our existing workflows into intelligent workflows so that you get pings whenever your document's been waiting on you because you forgot about that email that you got that you get 700 of in a single day, right? How do we make sure that we find where those bottlenecks are? Hey, you know, it always gets lost here. We need to add a gate here because it always gets stopped at this point. Or how do we make sure that if my job is to just check that the 5 documents are in the folder before it goes to so-and-so, we can check that. Let's just check it. And then I don't have to look at it. It doesn't have to wait on me. It's instantaneous. And then contract and financial intelligence, automated review of documents to make sure, do we have the right boilerplate version on the contract, right? Do we have certain clauses that are, this contract is 10 years old and we've just been renewing it, but the base contract has changed for the state of Indiana. How do we make sure we flag that to make sure when it gets signed again, the new terms get added to it? We all put our data into our financial data into PeopleSoft. Why can't we add some financial intelligence on some of the things we're doing so that if I'm paying $10 for pens, but you're paying $5 for pens, why don't I get that same $5 deal that you are? No one's looking for that, but we could turn AI into it to look onto something like that. There's a whole lot of other examples. We've already got a list of 15 or so, and it's going to be about prioritizing them and about making sure that we get the right value out of them and that the agencies who need the most help sort of go to the front of the list, the solutions that have the most value get to the top of the page, and that we're not just throwing good money after bad. So how can you get involved? Please, I do not have a monopoly on good ideas. I told you we got so many already, not even half of them are mine. I need help from all of you to understand what your challenges are. I want to hear from you. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. If you want it to be something like, hey, Scott, I need you to put this at the top of your list, well, then I'm going to ask you to put more effort into it. But if you're just saying, hey, Scott, think about this, send me a Teams message, right? My name's on the front on the presentation. Shoot me a Teams message. Just wanted you to be aware of this, this, and this. Thanks. I appreciate it. I'll give you a little thumbs up and I'll move on, right? We are starting with the coalition of the willing, right? I get it. Some of your agency heads, some of you are skeptical of AI, and you should be, as John talked about, right? There is a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of hype. If you're not ready, you're not ready. We're not going to force you to the table. But we want the folks who are ready, who are eager, who have thought about this. We want to talk to you. We want that to be part of the conversation. And so that's where we're starting. And if you would like to raise your hand, please do so. We're more than happy to start jotting that down. I can't say that I'm going to be able to drop everything and come talk to you on Tuesday, but we will get you on the calendar and we'll find a way to make it work. I don't care. You do it. I do it. So this is the last main slide here, which is what are some of the ongoing touch points? Don and I talked about sort of as needed things that if you're interested, that you can be involved in. But there are some ongoing things that you can sort of subscribe to or get involved in that would just give you regular touch points. And we talked about Copilot already. IoT is doing a fantastic job through the Viva Engage Copilot chat community of sending out chat or Copilot chat trainings. And we're really doing it in sort of multiple ways. It could be for sort of a vertical type style, like, hey, everybody in HFS, this might be of interest to you. Or it might be, hey, if you're a controller, it doesn't matter where you sit in the organization, but we're going to talk about financial things you can do with Copilot. Or if you're a lawyer, here are some things that you can do from a legal perspective, right? It doesn't matter which vertical you sit in. And so take a look at the Copilot training opportunities, and I highly encourage you to take advantage of those. They're usually recorded, and so you can do it on demand. There's a lot of great things there, and as John said, the tools are improving every day. So the first one that you go to, you're probably going to see a different tool by the time you get to the end because the features are rolling out every day, and they're getting better and better every day. My team, the data science team, has been doing a lot of work with sandboxes. If you're familiar with that, we offer sandboxes for agencies who want to sort of build things in a protected space and see what they can do by getting their hands dirty. And we are offering office hours, or we will be soon offering office hours, where a couple members of my team will just sit on a Teams call. And if you'd like to come in, drop a question to us ahead of time. We'll research it. We'll talk to you about it. Let's do some, it's truly an office hour environment. We'll probably bring some things to those office hours just to make sure that the time gets filled and we're not just all staring at each other's screens. But the point is that this is for practitioners. This is for people who are trying to get better. What are you learning? What am I learning? We do this sort of internally, or we especially did early on. And the amount of things that we learned from each other was just astounding, right? Like, oh, I tried that and it failed, and here's why it failed, right? We learn so much more from failure sometimes than success. But you succeeded, so let's compare notes. Let's see how we got to where we want, what was good and what was bad about that. Or, oh, I see what you're doing. What if you did it this way instead? Just more ideas to bounce off of each other. And the critical thing here is trying to solve problems in real time, really trying to offer value in the moment. They're not required. They're not going to be signups. It's just going to be like sort of an ongoing thing. Show up if you want. We'd be happy to talk to you about it. And then I'll let John talk about the APO group and the office hours.
Yeah. So I'm, of course, bad with the memory of it, but there is a policy out there. Each agency should have a APO, or known as an agency privacy officer. With some agencies, that's someone who does 3 other jobs and it's just a cap on top. With larger agencies, it's sometimes a dedicated individual who that is their whole role. Oftentimes it's paired with a general counsel. Doesn't have to be. There's a lot of privacy individuals now that are not attorneys. So we have an agency privacy officer group that we, of course, play a lot in the AI space. We have resources that are kind of behind a little bit of a guarded wall so that we can share those resources in our community with the APOs and share that. But we also have privacy office hours. So folks who are those APOs, but also folks who are interested in privacy in general can come ask questions about what things are going on in the state. But also if they have individual questions from a privacy perspective, just within their own agency, it's also oftentimes a good resource for kind of that sharing of information. So really recommend getting engaged with those groups. If you're interested, feel free to send me a Teams message or an email. The Engage or the Viva Engage State of Indiana Copilot chat community. If you want the link, send me a message. I tried to do a QR code and then it kept Microsoft love some of the features out there, but this one wasn't one of them. It kept throwing in error and saying, you need to open this in Teams, and it is a URL. So it didn't work very well, but there are like 28,000 of us in that group already. So should have access, but if not, if you're like me and links get buried, feel free to reach out to me. As always, as I'm sure Scott will agree, any point in time, feel free to reach out, have conversations with us. We're here to be a resource. We're here to be a force multiplier. We're both of the mindset of, as Scott mentioned earlier, we don't have all the answers, but we can share our lessons learned together and pool our resources and kind of create something cool in the long run. So.
Yeah, one thing I know, I noticed a few of you taking pictures of the slides throughout. That's totally fine, obviously, but these will be available afterwards through the MPH Data Day. The other thing we didn't put on here as far as engaging with our team, if you're not aware, MPH has what we call directors of engagement and analytics. There's a few of them in the audience. If you want to raise your hands, you don't have to. But if your agency has one, whether you know it or not, your agency has one, and they are always a great front door to MPH. So if you forget John and I's name, or you don't know how to get a hold of us, or we're not responding, which hopefully we don't do, but your DEA is a great resource, and you should know them even if you don't use them very often. And if you need to know who yours are, then the folks at the front desk out here can definitely help you with that and get you connected to the right person. With that, we are flying on time, and so we have plenty of time for questions, but we also realize we're standing between you and lunch, and so so if you wanna head out, please feel free. The back door, you just sort of loop around, but we're happy to answer any questions that you have. So please, if you're interested. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, that's a great question. So we're going to blast out emails, and I would imagine one of the groups that we will send that out to is the IT directors group that IoT maintains, and they are gracious enough to let us use often. And so whoever your IT director is, I would just ping them and just tell them like, hey, I'm interested in this. So when you see it come across, please let me know. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, as far as when the office hours, we're very close. I want to say 4 weeks, but maybe 6 is better. So I don't want someone to throw a shoe at me. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the question is what is the hopefully what clear direction can MPH give on applications you already have in your ecosystem where AI has been plugged in, and this is squarely within John's lane, so I'll let him talk about it.
I always feel like a parent, even though I'm not, where I'm like, well, it depends. One, send me an email. Let's talk about the actual details of it, because so much of this is driven by use case. So one, like facial recognition is always my favorite example with this. At TSA, you're going through the line, they take your picture, they compare it to your license. Some people aren't comfortable with it. Some people are, but all in all, remotely, not a huge invasion of privacy. Facial recognition in maybe the classroom with, elementary school students, completely different thing. Completely different thing. And so the technology is we've always taken the use case driven approach. So that's why I'm like, well, it depends. So reach out to me, send me an email, and we can schedule some time to chat through that.
There's a question in the back that I skipped. Yeah. Yeah. So the question was about, especially for large data sets, how you handle data governance. And once again, this is John's lane, so I'll let him answer.
I will give a plug for Scott and the data science team. There are some AI tools that they've been experimenting with that really have some large applicability here. I think that the trickiness is we've I always kind of break data into three different eras, and I kind of bucket us into the end of big data and where we're coming out of big data into the third era of like we need to focus a little bit more on data minimization because it's hard to govern all of this data. So we can use AI for some of it, but you also need to trust but verify. So it's kind of a little bit of a catch-22 because how do you do these things at scale? And I know that there are conversations that we're having, not to give you a non-answer, but we're evaluating tools as well, traditional tools, but also some AI tools to see what we can actually do effectively instead of putting out platitudes, which I always hate.
Yeah, to add on to that answer, I mean, what tools are available to you depends on what platform you're in, and so things like Databricks, which maybe have some of the things built in for data cataloging or profiling, might be a good solution for you. But if you're not in Databricks, then that's not a great solution. So MPH along with IoT, who makes tooling decisions, and we just sort of help inform them based on the needs of the enterprise. We can help you with that question because it's a question we get frequently, right? And IoT has some tools available already in their catalog that can be helpful, but then for some groups, it's not what they need, and so we have to find a way to help you get what it is you need. And so, to John's point, hopefully not every answer today is it depends, but we'd love to talk to you and get more details. The general answer is there are some tools available. So